Florida as the federal government sends help to the victims of Hurricane Andrew. In Louisiana, a 5-year-old boy searches for a silver lining as the storm clouds blow away. And U.S. pilots report no resistance on their patrols over southern Iraq. This is Newsday. I'm Cheryl Atkinson. Lou Waters is on assignment. Here's what's happening. Relief supplies are beginning to move into Florida following criticism that the federal government wasn't fast enough in helping the victims of Hurricane Andrew. Huge cargo planes are now landing in Florida, carrying everything from baby formula to roofing materials. And that's not all. The federal government is sending 8,000 troops, 4 750-kilowatt generators, and more than 100 smaller ones. It's providing debris removal, 20 mobile kitchens, 200,000 additional ready-to-eat meals, 6 million gallons of water, 25,000 cots, and 50,000 blankets. Yesterday, officials in Florida were complaining that bureaucratic delays were jeopardizing people's lives. President Bush says the government is responding as quickly as possible.
I'm not going to participate in the blame game, and nor is Governor Childs. What we're trying to do is help people, and it doesn't do any good to go into who shot John. I can tell you this, that this large a military movement would not have taken place if there was not very early planning and cooperation by the military. And we have responded. I think the governor would agree that when he asked for this massive movement of force, it was only within a few hours that we responded to that. And so I think much more important than when something took place or didn't take place is the feeling we must convey of total cooperation. And I'm satisfied that we responded properly, and I'm very confident that the military have conducted their mission so far with beautiful planning, now excellent execution, and I'm also satisfied that they will do whatever it takes to go the extra mile to help the people of Florida.
Many of the transport planes flying into Florida normally would be landing at Homestead Air Force Base, but Homestead was devastated by the hurricane, so most of the planes are landing instead at Opelika. CNN's Bonnie Anderson is there. Bonnie?
We've had a bit of a lull in the action. It's been about 2 hours since an aircraft has landed. We're told, though, that as soon as all 18 aircraft are cranked up, they should be arriving 1 or 2 an hour. So far today, from about 5 this morning, there have been 6 or 7 aircraft brought in. They are quickly unloaded, turned around within about a half hour of time, and they're even being refueled in the air to save time. With me is Major Bobby D'Angelo with the Air Force. What exactly has been coming in on these aircraft?
Well, this morning we saw a large unit of the 82nd Airborne, I believe, out of Fort Bragg. They were mostly quartermaster type folks.
What do quartermasters do?
They basically set up, feed, and bed down.
All right. You've had some utility vehicles arrive as well. What?
An assortment of utility vehicles, small vehicles, cranes of various sizes. You can see some of them parked over here, bulldozers, etc. All sorts of vehicles to clear debris and build.
Now, I understand there's also a group of civilians that arrived. What can you tell us about them?
A civilian group from New Mexico, a medical disaster relief group. They have they're veterans of Hurricane Hugo down in St. Croix. They arrived, and they were only here about 15 or 20 minutes before they went on. About 100 of them.
And I understand also that there was a group of troops from Camp Blanding.
Let's see, Camp Blanding yesterday, yeah. Air National Guard, Red Horse Civil Engineering Team. Red Horse, during wartime, what they do is they can build an Air Force base out of scratch anywhere in the world. They're down here, and then they can build anything here out of scratch.
Their equipment, though, is expected today.
They're going to meet their equipment. They're setting up operations down around the Metro Zoo.
Kitchens have been, portable mobile kitchens have been arriving in Homestead. My understanding is they can feed 300 people per hour. Do you have any idea how many have arrived?
It was my information that 4 of them arrived this morning very early, around 6 or 7 o'clock a.m.
And are probably operational right now?
I would think so. I don't know for sure.
You all have gotten a tremendous amount of support from the Florida Air Guard and also from the Air Force Reserve. How big a role are they playing?
Also the Florida National Guard. Basically, the Air Force Reserve and the Air National Guard, they're a full-time operation. On a daily basis, they do about half the Air Force's business in airlift and other things.
So they are doing that here. I mean, they're providing about half of the...
Absolutely. Things didn't have to be called up because they were already online. So you have an assortment of Air Force Reserve, Air National Guard, and active-duty Air Force planes trains coming through here all day long.
Standing by, ready to go.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Major.
Certainly.
At 3 o'clock, we're told a C-5 transport plane, the largest one in use anywhere in the world, will be arriving here with some more supplies. Reporting live, I'm Bonnie Anderson.
We'll check back, Bonnie Anderson. Hurricane Andrew has entered the record books as the costliest storm in U.S. history. Here are some numbers to prove the point. In Florida alone, $20 to $30 billion in damage. 250,000 people homeless, 39,000 people in Red Cross shelters, 400,000 homes and businesses without power. The figures are not quite as huge in Louisiana, but are bad just the same. At least $70 million in damages. $200 million lost to the state sugar crop, and 167,000 homes and businesses without power. Hurricane Andrew changed the lives of thousands. One 5-year-old boy in Louisiana was forced to grow up in a hurry because of the storm. More from CNN's Mike Capps.
This was my living room. The sofa was right there.
Seth St. Martin hasn't started school yet.
But this is the first time I ever been in this area and never saw a storm.
But Hurricane Andrew turned him worldly wise.
He's just pretty good kid, and he's 5 going on 35.
Andrew destroyed the St. Martin's 12 by 62-foot trailer, the only home Seth ever knew.
No, this was the kitchen.
Seth and his parents got out just before Andrew roared through.
He knew we were coming home to nothing when we left. We had explained everything to him, and he's a smart boy.
As you can see,
As he surveys twisted metal, wires, and splintered wood, remnants of his home, Seth's not sad, not at all.
this side, this was my bedroom.
He remembers good times, having friends visit in his room and play with toys that are probably ruined.
Well, I don't know if they still run, but they're in my trailer. I don't know if they still work and run, but I believe they do.
Seth's particularly happy. His dog survived the storm's fury.
He's a lot glad to see me. He's probably kind of nervous because it's the first time he ever saw a video of me.
Seth is not convinced a hurricane destroyed his home. He believes a tornado spawned by the storm did it.
No, a hurricane couldn't do this much damage.
Through the destruction, Seth St. Martin remains a neophyte philosopher.
All we got left now is our stuff that we used to have. So as you can see, everything is almost broken.
A 5-year-old who grew up overnight.
So you never had seen a storm like this before, had you?
None in my life.
Will you always remember this? Why?
Because it hit bad.
In the midst of Andrew's ruin, hope is all that remains for some. But it's hope that allows a 5-year-old to conclude that his new home will be better than the one he lost. Mike Capps, CNN, Franklin, Louisiana.
If you'd like to help victims of Hurricane Andrew get their lives back in order, grab a pencil and paper. We are going to give you 2 organizations that you can contact. First, the American Red Cross Disaster Relief Fund, P.O. Box 37243, Washington, D.C. The zip is 20013, or you can call to see how you can help. The number is 1-800-842-2200, or you can contact the Salvation Army National Office, 615 Slater's Lane, P.O. Box 269, Alexandria, Virginia. The zip is 22313. The phone number 703-684-5500. Coming up on Newsday, Iraq may be muttering retaliation, but Allied planes are finding the skies over southern Iraq empty. And budget politics in California may force people struggling for independence back to the high-cost arms of state health care.
From Central Florida's news channel, this is 6 News, an eye on Hurricane Andrew.
If any federal official is trying to blame a state official, I want it to stop. And if any state official is trying to blame the federal official or local official, that's not constructive. I know it makes very good, wonderful debate, but it doesn't help anything. What we're trying to do is work together here.
Slashing through red tape to open the floodgates of food for the hurricane survivors. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this special edition of 6 News at 5.
We are in 6 News Army Central, surrounded by what you, our viewers, have contributed to the victims of Hurricane Andrew. More about this impressive display a little bit later. First, let's take a look at today's events. Well, a welcome sight in Homestead. Military troops finally getting food to hungry hurricane survivors. Some people are being fed for the first time in days.
He's saying, sir, what are you telling the folks as they step down?
And we finally got them fed. It's been a long day.
Yeah, it has been a long day, but now you're up and running.
That's correct. We're up and running, and we're going to feed these people. And I think everybody can be very happy about that. Hopefully they can.
Okay, well, I'm not...
It isn't the Ritz, but these people are very happy to be eating again. On the menu today, ham, vegetables, and cornbread. The military will set up 20 mobile kitchens around South Dade County. They can feed up to 72,000 people every 24 hours.
I kind of want to be here just to help out. It's kind of, we're all on a mission now, just to make sure everything gets done and take as long as it takes.
You've seen the pictures. How would you describe it?
Disaster.
The cavalry has arrived in South Florida. Military cargo planes started landing in Opelika this morning, one every 30 minutes. The planes carry mobile kitchens, food, water generators, and other supplies. The military is in South Florida just in time. The Dade County Emergency Director warned yesterday that more people would die without federal help.
People appreciate the job you're doing.
They seem to. We turned the building on the other day, got fireworks and applaud and all kinds of stuff. Makes it worthwhile.
Power crews are on the job working to hook up more than 400,000 South Florida homes that are still without electricity. Today, Florida Power and Light said it could be weeks before power is completely restored. News on the positive side. Winn-Dixie trucks full of food and other supplies are on the road to South Florida this afternoon. More relief in sight.
Relief efforts in South Dade County finally making some headway, but some are still asking why it took so long to get the federal troops in there. 6 News reporter Tony Pipitone is joining us now. He's been monitoring the war of words in our video room 6 all day.
Yeah, David, and the words have been flying around the satellites all day. From Washington to Tallahassee to what's left of South Dade, people are asking why troops weren't on the way sooner. Here's an update on what President Bush today called the blame game.
In effect, the day before in the morning that the storm was occurring, we said we are going to have help with food. We can tell this is major. You've got to help us get food. Those kitchens, I guess, are arriving today.
There is no point getting into blame and this who shot John thing that I know everybody's fascinated with. I don't want that, and I don't want one single federal official trying to be in the blame assigning business. I've given you the facts here today. I think Governor Childs will understand that those are the facts, and the important thing is to help the people.
I'm not here to assess blame or point fingers. The truth is we want to address the problems that exist, and all of us are focused on doing that. We want to get people help quickly because they need it, and so I'm not interested in pointing fingers. I was not aware of any formal request from the governor.
FEMA has military representatives in FEMA. Now, that's what we were told to do. We went through the chain of command that we were told to operate through. And we asked for military aid, and they told us, you go to 2nd Army. That's your connection. 2nd Army is headquartered in Atlanta or somewhere there. We went to 2nd Army, and we asked 2nd Army. Now...
And got turned down.
That's right, and got turned down.
Tony, this seems a little unseemly. All the finger pointing, all the blame, it wasn't us, when there are all these hungry people down in South Dade without homes.
Yeah, there were a lot of people remarking about that today, but this is an election year, and President Bush certainly doesn't want this to become an issue. We heard some Miamians complaining yesterday that Bush got troops to Saudi Arabia faster than he got them to South Dade, and the president certainly doesn't want that to stick come November.
You bet, with Florida a very important state
he needs it to
in
win,
this presidential campaign.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Michelle?
Hundreds of military families who were forced to leave Homestead are anxious to see pictures of the Homestead Air Force Base. They know it was pretty much wiped out. 6 News showed families who wanted to see the videotape today. 6 News reporter Tracy Brown on the story.
Every military person in this room watched in horror video of where they live and work at Homestead Air Force Base, all destroyed by Hurricane Andrew.
The base is a hazard zone. There are nails, broken glass, jagged wood all over the place, debris strewn along the roads.
Debbie Carlton was in Homestead during the hurricane, a time she says she'll never forget.
It's like nuclear winter. I was expecting monsters to come crawling out of things. It just, people are walking around bandaged and bruised in a daze. There's people that need medical attention. babies that need food.
It seemed like 100 freight trains just coming one direction, and then it took a little break. We switched rooms, and we got inside a closet, and it came from the other direction, and it just hit, and you hear things being thrown all over. You feel the winds coming through the doors coming off.
I can't imagine. I mean, it must have blown your mind.
I'd rather go to war. At least I have a chance to shoot back.
As Tim McKnight and his family watch the video, they say nothing can compare to the real thing.
I would say comparing it to the video, it's when you go down there, you'd see a lot more damage than the video would show you.
Meantime, Alfred Bonnick is stocking up on toiletries and supplies for the trip back home.
Just assess the damage on my house and do some minor repairs, seal it up, and head back up this way.
In Orlando, Tracy Brown, 6 News.
6 News reporter Ed Trotsky has been in the South Florida area since even before the hurricane hit. He joins us now live from Homestead. Ed, is there a different feeling amongst the people today now that the cavalry in effect has arrived?
Very different. What a difference a day makes. You know, they say yesterday at this time, Dade County's emergency management director was saying, where the hell is the cavalry? Well, take a look. This is it. This is the first sign of it anyway. It doesn't look like much, but this is a mobile kitchen from the Army. A mobile kitchen from the Army. They're asking for some more help right now to serve meals. Now, that mobile kitchen here can serve about 300 meals an hour. There are 19 kitchens just like it already in place across South Florida. 4,500 troops have already been moved here. All you had to do was look up in the skies today over Homestead, and you saw military aircraft bringing in food, water, supplies, medical supplies, tents, just about everything they need here. And one of the important things, they will be finally getting hot meals. See all these hamburger buns over here? They're going to have a McDonald's-style meal tonight. It will be hot. Hamburgers, hot dogs, and French fries. I talked to some of the people who are staying at this shelter at the middle school here, and they're glad to have anything like this.
Well, there's certainly real progress being made, Ed, but is there anything happening to the rubble? In other words, does anything look any different, or is that certainly way down the priority list with the human needs to be met first?
Well, you know, right now we are in the worst hit area. I saw 2 positive signs today. I saw electric crews down here finally working. They have been working their way south from North Dade. I also saw some cleanup at the Cutler Ridge Shopping Mall, but so many of the buildings here are so ravaged. The first thing that's going to happen is a temporary solution. What they're having to do is put plastic over roofs, and the military is flying in a lot of plastic today. It's a good thing. We had a downpour here about an hour ago.
All right, thanks a lot, Ed, reporting live from South Dade. Michelle?
Well, we can only imagine the terror of the people in Miami as Hurricane Andrew was striking. Health specialist Charna Davis has one man's story of living through the storm only to find total destruction.
I was holding on to the water, where the water comes out, and the soap dish, because the building was just vibrating and shaking upwards. So the apartments on the wall that I was on collapsed, and I heard the people screaming, and they moved to the bathroom, which is adjacent to mine. And I didn't know what was going on with them. And I just sat there, bent over for 3 hours, almost unable to breathe, and just prayed to, you know, that I'd come through. And as soon as the wind got down probably about 100 miles an hour, the downstairs neighbors came and got me and the lady next door, and we went downstairs.
Bill King says he thought braving the storm in his West Kendall apartment was the worst experience of his life, and that includes service in the Persian Gulf.
I'd go back to Desert Storm and stay there before I'd go through one more hour of being in that bathtub.
This is Bill's home video of what's left of his apartment. He never expected the aftermath to be even more terrible than the hurricane. Bill says the people in Kendall are a forgotten group. No food, no water, no information.
There hasn't been anybody there yet to tell us what to do. I saw American Red Cross signs in Orlando, and not one in the area in Miami that I'm at. Not even anybody out there telling you where to go.
Bill, you were in the military almost 11 years.
Right.
Are you surprised it took them so long?
I'm very surprised. It took them 48 hours to get me to Saudi Arabia, and in 4 days they don't have a bottle of water to the people in West Kendall in South Florida.
Bill took these pictures after a friend from Orlando drove down to Kendall with a truck to rescue him and pick up the few things which were not destroyed. When they got to the apartment, though, everything was gone. Looters helped themselves, but Bill says he doesn't care.
After living through that experience, you can just be thankful to be alive, you know, very thankful. And not much else matters. The material things don't matter that much anymore.
I'm Charna Davis, 6 News.
There are literally hundreds of thousands of people like Bill King who need your help and need it desperately and need it right now. And there is a way that you can double your contribution painlessly. 2 banks, Barnett and First Union, will match your donation dollar for dollar. Here's what you have to do. If you want your money to go through Barnett Bank, make your check out to Barnett Bank, American Red Cross Disaster Relief Fund. And you can drop off your contribution at any Barnett branch. If you prefer to use First Union, make your check payable to First Union Red Cross Disaster Relief Fund and drop it off at any First Union Bank branch. Both banks will double your contributions up to a total of $500,000 for each institution. Now, you can also bring or send your checks to us at 6 News. We'll be happy to forward along for you. And we just got a check this afternoon, $114 from the Goldenrod Friday Matinee Bingo players. Every little bit helps. Thank you.
It is so terrific. While thousands are homeless in South Florida, a volunteer effort is forming out of Rockledge tonight. 6 News photographer Joe Carroll spoke with the group who plans to find homes for victims of Andrew.
We knew that houses were collapsing, but I certainly was never ready for every house collapsing.
The images of Andrew are special reminders for everyone living in Central Florida.
It's frightening after seeing all the pictures. It really is.
Pat Gavin sees the news reports as snapshots of what might have been for his neighborhood, his home, his family.
I've got nice things. I've got a roof over my head. My family's safe. And these people don't have that. It's heartbreaking.
So with a few telephones, Pat, his wife Hillary, along with some friends and the city of Rockledge, started a shelter hotline to connect Central Florida residents who have the room with hurricane victims who need a temporary place to stay.
We'll ask them how many people they're willing to take in, if they'll take children, if they'll take pets, if they have capabilities for helping out handicapped people, if they will provide meals.
The information will be computerized and sent to South Florida shelters, city managers, and the Red Cross. Central Florida Home Shelters hopes to give at least 2,000 victims of Andrew a decent place to live here in Central Florida.
Yeah, we've been very lucky, and my feelings are that if it happened here, I would hope that somebody else would be willing to, if I was in the same position, to open up their home to me.
In Rockledge, Joe Carroll, 6 News.
Now, not only is this group looking for host families, they are also looking for volunteers to man the phone lines. If you can help either way, please give them a call at area code 407-635-9919. 635-9919. David?
Well, you know, people aren't the only ones in need. Thousands of cats and dogs need your help as well. Veterinarians at animal hospitals and clinics in South Brevard County are literally stuffing a truck with pet supplies. It will be heading for the disaster area just as soon as it is loaded. If you would like to help South Florida's pets, you can drop off a donation at any Humane Society office or call your vet. He or she will tell you what's needed the most.
Okay, coming up on this special edition of 6 News, our 6 News Army effort is bursting at the seams.
And you'll meet some of our recruits, the volunteers that have shown up to help out, and find out how you can enlist in this endeavor. We'll be right back.
The magnitude of this storm, and I think the magnitude of the damage. And I think everybody thought that the response that you normally have, would take care of it.
What are we doing here in what looks like a warehouse? What are we doing dressed in T-shirts? Well, this is all part of our 6 News Army campaign to get as much money, materials, food, and water down to the ravaged areas of southern Florida as we can, as soon as we possibly can.
Whatever you can give it all. You know, we have seen so much human pain and suffering the last couple of days. Well, here is proof. There is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel. These, our drive doesn't actually officially begin until Saturday, 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. And our
people have been showing up the last 2 days.
Car after car after car with donations, cash donations. I want to show you back here. Just take a look with me if you can at all the people hard at work. They are boxing what all of you have dropped by. Non-perishable food, fresh fruit juice, baby diapers, you name it. Come on over here. Give me your name and where you're from.
I'm Shanna Ferriola from Orlando.
And what would you like to tell the people of South Florida?
That we do care.
Absolutely right. Can you all stop and say hi to the folks? The effort has been nonstop. We have a couple of maps we want to show you if you would like to pitch in and help the 6 News Army this Saturday. There are 3 drop-off locations. The first one is in Brevard County at the Merritt Square Mall. It's right off of 520, real easy to find. They will take whatever you can give. We are working with the Red Cross and the Salvation Army. Now, if you live in Volusia County, you can take your donations to Mainland High School. There's the map on the screen. If you need any more directions, all you need to do is call us at 424-WCPX. We'll get you all the information. And if you want to join us here in Orlando, Channel 6 is located at 4466 John Young Parkway. You can take I-4, get off Lee Road. You'll find us. You'll see the trucks. You'll see all the excitement and the positive energy here. Now, what you're seeing in the warehouse is just a small smidgen of the great things going on here. Shepard Smith has been watching all the great things happening outside. Shep?
Been out in the rain all day, Michelle, and the stuff we have seen is beyond belief. This is just a fraction of the 6 News Army. The rest is outside. Here we go, Joe. Out the back door. This is where all the canned goods go. We've taken in an entire truckload of canned goods. This is for our volunteers. Pizza Hut donated some food. Really appreciate that. Through here, this is where we normally have our props for all the productions that we do at Channel 6. And look out the back door. You're not going to believe this. The bottled water here, we're getting together enough bottled water to fill up an entire Mack truck. An entire truckload of nothing but water. Joe, if you can get a shot in here. This truck was just pulled into our parking lot. We filled 2 of them exactly that size today. And like Michelle said, our drive hasn't even started. This is non-perishable foods, all kinds of bedding supplies, paper towels. The good people from Roadway are making our trucks possible. Tell us a little bit about how you got this organized at Roadway.
Well, we just volunteered. We called up, wanted to know if the station could use our trucks, and we showed up over here and started loading. And that's what we've been doing since yesterday.
And we appreciate it so much. We had expected a great response, but we hadn't expected it until tomorrow. A bunch of 6 News employees came in on their own time today, started directing traffic. We had lines all the way out to John Young Parkway, backing things up. The response has been wonderful. We need your help tomorrow. We need what volunteers we can get. We can help the people of South Florida. And if you think this isn't rewarding, there's nothing like it. David, back to you.
I want to stress that we certainly do need some volunteers. And a lot of people have thought of things that we hadn't even thought of this. Look at this. Children's books. I've read these to my kids, and just think about it. You're in a shelter, your kids are crying, maybe 10 minutes of reading Pinocchio or a Bambi book would calm them down, give them a little bit of something familiar, or just something they can think about other than what they're going through right now, which just has to be terribly heartbreaking. Relief efforts throughout Central Florida continue to pour in, quite literally in one case. Orlando utilities workers spent this day pouring thousands of gallons of water into plastic jugs to be taken down to South Florida. They're calling this H2O to go. It took them about 4 hours to fill 5,000 jugs. 2 semis are driving the water down. We'll be right back with more after this break.
Stay with the 6 News Army.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the politics of Hurricane Andrew. Speaking to reporters today, President Bush felt compelled to answer personally the charges that he had been slow to respond to the crisis. This morning, 12 hours after the president gave the military order, the first of the huge cargo planes carrying emergency supplies began arriving in Florida. But as ABC's Al Dale reports, as relieved as people in Florida are, many still want to know why it took so long.
Many of the soldiers who arrived at Homestead Air Force Base this morning to prepare hot meals for hurricane victims were veterans of the Gulf War. Still, they were shocked at the devastation here.
These people are in dire need of our help. I'm surprised we weren't brought here sooner.
A lot of people in South Florida wondered the same thing. By the time the convoy rolled into position to set up the first mobile kitchen, there was as much appreciation as irritation.
Peanut butter sandwiches and some peaches last night. And this is going to be a balanced meal.
The first meal was ham and eggs. Gratitude mixed with continuing frustration.
I've never done this before. I've never been in a line like this.
The military will set up 20 field kitchens in the hardest hit areas, capable of serving 72,000 meals a day. And plane loads of tents, cots, and blankets for the newly homeless, plus helicopters and supply vehicles also began arriving today. Meanwhile, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, target of so much criticism for its slow response in relief efforts, today opened its first office to process claims for assistance. But many people who showed up trying to get money to rebuild homes and businesses or just to support their families were told the agency was out of application forms and given an 800 phone number to call instead.
I went and stand in line and they told me that to call a telephone number, and see if they can help us out.
Even those who did get forms will have to wait days or weeks for approval. Fortunately, many volunteer agencies like the Red Cross and local businesses are giving away food and water. Getting to it, waiting in long lines, and carrying it away remain daily trials for people trying to cope. Al Dale, ABC News, Homestead, Florida.
President Bush said today that he can understand why tempers are short, but he said he is satisfied that his administration's response was swift and proper. Here's ABC's Britt Hume.
The president insisted he didn't want to lay blame for the allegedly slow disaster response, but it was clear he didn't want to be blamed either.
I'm not going to participate in the blame game, and nor is Governor Childs. What we're trying to do is help people, and it doesn't do any good to go into who shot John.
But the president did say he couldn't legally send the troops until officially asked by Florida Governor Childs. And when he was asked yesterday afternoon, he said he did it.
I think the governor would agree that when he asked for this massive movement of force, it was only within a few hours that we responded to that.
Privately, administration officials claim the president offered Childs a battalion of troops during his visit to Florida Monday, but the governor declined. These officials said that only after being pressed hard by the administration to make the needed written request for troops did he finally do it yesterday. Today, Democrat Childs chose not to dispute that. He and the president had spoken by phone and apparently agreed for both their sakes politically to play down any disagreements.
I think we've sort of agreed we're going to put that behind us. We got a chronology that, we can kind of show when we made the request, but that's time for that. Finger pointing is over. Federal troops are here now. We're delighted.
As the comments of distressed storm victims made clear, the political stakes for Mr. Bush in a major state he's counting on heavily this fall could hardly be higher.
You ain't going to get my vote. Take 4 days to try to help people down here. They're in a lot worse shape than we are.
What do you got to say to President Bush?
If you want my vote, you got to do better than this. That's what I got to say to you.
All right.
Officials here insist the people of South Florida will end up feeling grateful to the president for the help they're now getting. Perhaps, but that puts a burden on those federal troops, not just to feed and house people, but to change their minds as well. Britt Hume, ABC News, the White House.
When we come back, the profiteers making a buck off other people's misery. Another relief operation begins 7,000 miles away. And on this Friday, our person of the week, stressed out, but on the job. Crisis, the worst in people sometimes emerges. In Florida today, as people searched for basic necessities, they occasionally encountered others more interested in profit. Here's ABC's Linda Patillo.
A bag of ice, normally less than $1, $3. A jug of water, normally $1.50, $5. From the backs of trucks all along the main road south of Miami, a makeshift economy is thriving.
Any credit cards here? Yeah.
Mark Williams paid $695 for a generator, $100 over normal cost. He called it a bargain. Farther south, he would have had to pay a lot more.
When I think of it, blood money. They're out to scalp everybody.
Indeed, down the road, the Riveras and 4 other families were pooling their last $200 to try to buy a generator.
How much for generator? That one there, $1,400.
Prices for building supplies are skyrocketing. Plywood that sold for $10 before the hurricane now costs $25. The Florida Attorney General has sent subpoenas to 9 national lumber suppliers demanding an explanation for the huge increase in prices. Residents are angry that people from out of town are coming in to take advantage of them.
It shouldn't be. We're all getting used. We're getting ripped off big time.
That's not right.
And people are hurt. People are devastated.
The county government has made price gouging a criminal offense, but the police have too much else to do to enforce it. Linda Patillo, ABC News, Homestead, Florida.
And the hurricane's going to have a national economic impact. Louisiana and Florida are both major producers of food, and the cost of rebuilding is going to put strain on other parts of the economy. Here's our economics editor, Stephen Ogg.
If you're building a home, you can expect to pay a lot more for anything made of wood. The need for rebuilding after Hurricane Andrew has made supplies even tighter.
Last week we were selling plywood for $17.50 a sheet. This week we're selling sheets for about $26.
We should expect to see more increases in lumber prices over the next few months than we've seen to date.
Some fruits, like limes, avocados, and mangoes, are in short supply because of the hurricane, and their prices are up. But imports should fill the gap, and prices should go down again. Although Louisiana is well known for shrimp, 3/4 of the shrimp Americans eat comes from overseas, so prices should not be affected. But with so many people out of work and out of business, the effects of Hurricane Andrew will hurt the U.S. economy overall.
We're going to have a big loss in retail sales, at least in southern Florida and Louisiana. They won't be able to do any housing starts for a while. And business is at a standstill.
Starting later this fall, increased construction activity as Florida rebuilds should add jobs and income. While that will help the economy, the guessing is it will not be enough to regain all that was lost. Stephen Ogg, ABC News, New York.
In Louisiana, while there was not nearly as much damage caused by Hurricane Andrew as there was in Florida, there are indications that there may be some serious damage to what is a very delicate ecosystem. ABC's Charles Murphy has been in the Louisiana bayous.
The bayous are placid. A pair of great egrets came through the hurricane unruffled. So did this barred owl and its mate. Except for smashed up trees, it looks normal here, but it's not.
Jump hard. Oh!
Alligator Annie is out feeding her babies. She hasn't seen them since the storm.
Baby! Come on, Belle!
Annie Miller runs a popular swamp tour out of Houma, Louisiana. She called up several gators, but big ones like Charlie were too shy.
Well, I guess that storm probably scared them to death like it did the humans.
The normally fresh water is salty.
The Louisiana bayous are a delicate ecosystem. Saltwater is constantly intruding, and this hurricane only made things worse.
Breaches in the barrier islands have opened up access routes for salt water to get into marshes that aren't that salt tolerant.
Salt water would move in here, would kill the vegetation. Then there's nothing to hold the land up. You know, it's everything will sink.
Louisiana loses 25,000 acres of land a year to the ocean. Something killed a fish. Van Heerden spotted this 18-mile-long kill in the Gulf below Morgan City. He thinks they were beaten to death by churning water or stranded on shore by high waves.
That's a green herring.
Nolan Blanchard, who was born on these bayous in a houseboat, knows every critter on them, and he says they're disoriented. The big gators will come back, but the damage from erosion and saltwater intrusion could be permanent. Charles Murphy, ABC News, near Houma, Louisiana.
We'll have more news in just a moment. This evening, our person of the week. It has been a horrible week for a lot of people in Louisiana, but particularly in Florida. So many people have seen so much of their personal lives become history. The overall struggle to recover from Hurricane Andrew is, as it always is in a crisis, made up of individual stories. A few of them, as we saw earlier, which involve greed and exploitation, and many more which reflect the best in the human condition. The woman we have chosen tonight understands, as do we, that she is not unique. And it is gratifying to know there are many others like her.
I'm just happy to be alive. I'm happy that I didn't get caught out in this. Helping other people, all of that takes my mind off of my own self, my misery. I can't really do anything else except my job.
Susan Ball is a police officer. She has had plenty to keep her occupied since last weekend. The area of South Miami, which her precinct serves, was among the hardest hit by Hurricane Andrew. Ball, along with hundreds of other local cops, firefighters, and paramedics, has been working 12 to 16 hours a day.
We're just doing what we get paid to do. We're doing what we chose to do, and that means that holidays, we work, and in disasters, we work when you're supposed to be home. We knew that when we got into this job. 206 to 50.
This is not the view from the patrol car so often portrayed by Hollywood.
How long you been out here?
About 2.5 hours.
Have you had any water?
No.
Open that back door, there's a jug of water, just take it. He's like, hasn't had anything to drink in hours. I gave him some water, but he's requesting some relief. Is there anybody that maybe can come and help him? Can't even tell where I am because nothing looks the same anymore. This is where I grew up. I don't recognize anything anymore.
Susan Ball was born in Texas but raised in South Miami. She always wanted to be a cop.
You all right? How's your house? You still got a roof over your head? Being able to make a difference, you know, not necessarily in crunching crime or anything like that, but being able to help somebody a little bit.
When her marriage ended in divorce 5 years ago, she got custody of the twins, Eric and Randy. They are 9. This is what is left of their room. Her apartment complex was condemned yesterday.
This is the first home that I've had that I've made for myself and my children. It's very sad to have it taken away from me.
Just before the storm struck, she sent the twins to stay with their father. She hadn't seen them all week.
Before I knew whether my kids were safe or not, I panicked inside. I can't panic when people are looking to me to be calm.
A distress call, an officer in distress and needing backup. Ball speeds to the scene, but it's over when she arrives.
What was that all about? Does anybody know?
Back to the grind. This man, who seemed disoriented, was standing out in traffic when Ball approached.
Well, be careful you don't step on a live wire, okay?
Yeah, I'm very cautious.
Or you'll be jumping up and down in the middle of the street, you know, involuntarily. Everybody's stressed out. Everybody's tired.
This morning at roll call, the strain was beginning to show on Susan. Her children were safe, but they, like everybody else, were living without running water or electricity.
I want to go down and check on my kids. I can't get a hold of them, and I want them to get the hell out of here.
The twins were holding up better than she'd expected, except both had caught colds.
So what have you guys been eating? I feel relieved. I feel like I can concentrate on taking better care of myself, which I have not been.
Eric and Randy helped her carry some water to tenants in their father's apartment complex.
Okay. Watch your fingers. You need anything?
Do we need anything?
Water? Yeah. You got water?
Yes, we have water.
You got water. All right.
Hurricane Andrew uprooted 250,000 lives. Susan Ball is a police officer who happens to be one of them, and who kept right on doing what she was supposed to do. Not quite Miami Vice.
I'm happy that I wasn't hurt, my kids weren't hurt, that I can go on from here, you know. There's no reason to give up. You know, I'm just, I'm tired and I'm sweaty and I'm, you know, want to go home like everybody else, but I'll go on.
And so we choose Susan Ball, and we're glad we found her, an example of putting the community before herself. We learned today she's one of 235 policemen and women in Dade County who also lost their homes, but are spending their time helping their communities get back on their feet. That's our report on World News Tonight, 2020, later this evening. I'm Peter Jennings. Have a good weekend and good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News.
This is CNN.
Right now the winds are about 145 miles per hour around the core of this hurricane. So indeed it's a powerful hurricane. We're already getting some of the rain bands coming across the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. We have about 500,000 people that have already evacuated, and everybody else is basically boarded up, taking refuge.
Andrew did more or less what forecasters had expected, but the center of the hurricane hit the shore just a bit south of Miami proper. Homestead, a city of 27,000 people, was one of the hardest hit.
I never in my any dreams thought I'd see anything like this. They're built to 120-mile-an-hour storm standards here in Dade County. Even those buildings that one would assume would be safe have lost roofs and walls, etc.
Most of the people killed when the hurricane hit Florida's east coast died in South Dade County, crushed to death in their homes. People in the island chain stretching from Key Largo to Key West escaped the worst of the storm. Andrew stayed on the mainland. Its passage across the state took only a few hours. The storm lost only a bit of its power and speed as it raced across the Everglades to Marco Island and the region just to the south.
We were through Hugo and we were through Gloria, but this is the worst one. I haven't seen this kind of velocity. I haven't seen this long a time of the storm. It's incredible.
When Andrew left the Florida coast, it left as many as 250,000 people in the east, especially in Dade County, without a home.
At dawn, the road from Miami south to Homestead was a scene of increasing devastation. In Perrine, 150 patients at a nursing home wandered about in mud-soaked debris, the front side of the facility destroyed. On either side of the southbound highway, businesses with caved-in roofs, broken windows, collapsed walls. In the small town of Naranja, firefighters treated the injured. Several migrant families left homeless by the hurricane asked for help, but there was not enough room, not enough food, not enough water. A mile away, Homestead residents surveying the damage were stunned by what they saw. The city manager estimates 90% of the city was severely damaged. Among the worst devastation was at Homestead's 5 trailer camps. This one had 400 mobile homes before Andrew. Now only the shells of 4 or 5 remain, leaving many residents wandering the streets for shelter.
It's unbelievable that you have so much one day and the next day it's all gone.
It was the home of their dreams, bought 4 years ago with a lifetime of savings from a police officer's salary.
This is what was our living room.
What the storm didn't blow away was destroyed. For the Radizaks, it was truly a day of heartbreak.
This is our guest room.
Just unbelievable. In a few hours, what can be destroyed, what you work years for.
I've cried and cried, but I know we have to get on with this, and there's probably people that are worse off than we are. And as soon as we get ourselves together, I know I'm going to be out there trying to help someone else.
The house can be fixed. The furniture can be fixed. The memories for so many years. It's devastating.
It is a field of crumpled metal and shattered dreams, prized possessions that Andrew transformed into debris. The Merritts have a floor, but no walls, no roof.
Had me so disturbed, it just boiled me down to one thing, just be patient as I can and start from scratch again.
Homestead Air Force Base may have to start from scratch. All buildings on the base were severely damaged or destroyed.
You won't be left to pick up the pieces by yourselves. I know for many of you it's a lonely time, but the people of Florida are ready to stand by your side.
The estimates that FEMA have are preliminary, but they're in the billions of dollars, and it's extraordinary. And again, I say material loss is appalling. Then you think of the human suffering, the anxiety for the families. That's the one that touches your hearts.
Looters weren't helping, though National Guardsmen and police were trying to keep them out of the stores. The few stores that are open are jammed. No one's searching for gourmet meals.
I'm trying to place an emergency call to...
Telephones are also precious and few, a lifeline to ask for help and to let relatives know everything's okay, more or less.
I was lucky. We thought we were going to die, but we have a house left. We're doing better than 90% of the people around us.
Those who had insurance fared better as well.
But first of all, your house has to be unlivable.
It's unlivable.
The Perez family has a sort of insurance. A family member who drove down from Athens, Georgia with a load of food.
You got to be with the family. And time like this, you got to be with friends and family. You got to find out where they're at, what happened to them.
More than a dozen shelters are still open, housing 35,000 people. Thousands of others are staying with relatives. Florida Power and Light reports 600,000 customers, that's homes and businesses, are still without electricity. But some customers in the most damaged areas may be in the dark for months, even years. Roads have been cleared remarkably quickly of trees and debris, but traffic lines, mostly returning residents, have become unmanageable at times. Tempers are short, lines are long, but gas stations are slowly reopening after a 3-day hiatus. Water is still at a premium, lines were cut, but regular distribution points have been set up. Most hospitals are operating, though 2 were severely damaged. Schools are scheduled to open next week.
A lot of the schools are still shelters, so it'd be kind of difficult to hold classes there.
I feel like quitting, but something about the American dream doesn't let you do that. And that was my dream.
I've been in Homestead now 15 years, and you see these pictures on TV. And you really, we've worked so hard in this community to build what we got. It's 12 years of my life. We just got to start over.
Hurricane Andrew slammed into Louisiana in coastal Morgan City just after midnight. It stayed in the low-lying south-central part of the state for hours.
It took my brother's trailer and destroyed it. It took the other 2 on the other side and destroyed it. And the other 2 next to my brothers, they can't find it.
I only expected to find the glass busted out, and I was going to find some water damage in here, but just seeing that whole wall wiped out just kind of makes you want to sit down and cry, you know. It's not a pretty sight.
The damage was serious, some estimated in the hundreds of millions of dollars, but it's nothing like the devastation earlier this week in Florida, and the governor was thankful.
It is bad. There's extensive property. The cane crop seems pretty well destroyed. Great deal of damage to buildings in Houma, Terrebonne, Houma, Morgan City, New Iberia, and Jeanerette, but minimum of lives and very few injuries, and for that we can be thankful.
President Bush, for the second time this week, came south to see the damage firsthand.
We care very much about this. We want to show that we care, and the federal government assets that are dedicated to this kind of effort are on the ground, ready to assist in every way we can.
Officials say more than 300,000 people in the state lost power as trees snapped power lines throughout. Trailer homes were damaged or destroyed along Andrews Path, and the 100-year-old oak trees that line southern Louisiana's antebellum mansions splintered like matchsticks.
The loudest noise you ever heard. When y'all finish walking down the street, you're going to see the rest of the damage. This house was here, it's disintegrated. It's gone. There's a house here just disintegrated. There's 5 others down the street that's, you know, it's demolished.
And me and my mother hit the floor in my bedroom, and we can hear the roof just tearing off. We can hear it like sound like peeling paint off a house.
In coastal Laplace, Andrew spawned at least 3 tornadoes, one of which claimed a victim, and officials are struggling to provide help.
One of the frustrations is it's very hard to get in and put facilities up and get them manned when the support elements for people that you're bringing in, the buildings themselves are damaged, and power is not up. So we're working on those priorities.
We haven't gotten any word concerning anything concerning food, water, shelter, medication, nothing.
Nothing from the government at all?
Nothing from the government at all.
As far as government aid, quote unquote, no, I haven't seen any at all.
A volunteer tries to deliver a truckload of ice to hurricane victims. He's turned away because he doesn't live in the area.
It's pretty silly for me to buy 2 truckloads of ice out of my pocket for it to melt in a damn truck. We dump it on the ground, people get it where they want it.
A line of thirsty, hungry people waits for hours for a food shipment. What they get is one Salvation Army sandwich wagon.
All we need is help from anybody that's out there in the whole United States.
A relief center is set up in Homestead, Florida, not by the Red Cross, but by South Carolina volunteers who had to break down the doors of a school to get inside.
We're in no way associated with the Red Cross. We've been very disappointed in the Red Cross because
Like many of the other responding agencies, they haven't been called to respond.
Despite heroic efforts by thousands of volunteers, aid delivery to hurricane victims is degenerating quickly, like this ice truck that managed to make it to the destruction zone. Dade County, Florida officials are overwhelmed.
If we do not get more food and water into the south end in a very short period of time, we are going to have more casualties because we're going to have people who are dehydrated, who are without food, babies that need formula.
The targets of local wrath are state agencies and the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Federal officials, though, claim everything's moving smoothly.
The food is going to get to the people who need the food, and I'm going to make sure it happens. That's why I'm here. Is that a guarantee? That's a guarantee.
Local officials are supposed to contact state officials who ask federal officials for aid. Federal officials are then supposed to ask for major military help. But plane loads of Air Force supplies and equipment sat at Dobbins Air Force Base in Georgia for 3 days with no orders to move. The first plane load of supplies did not arrive until Thursday afternoon.
I don't know the extent of the games, the partisan games that are going on here, but Dade County is being victimized by a lot of people who are posturing when we're not getting what we've asked for.
I think we've helped the whole world, and now people really, really need it right here at home, and it seems like nothing's being done.
Well, it feels like our government is letting us down. I mean, we help other countries, but we are here. They should be helping us a little bit.
I've directed the federal troops be immediately alerted and begin to provide additional emergency assistance to the victims of the disaster.
It took them 4 days, but several thousand troops armed with generators, trucks, kitchens, and machinery were finally on the ground Friday. They're ready to serve 200,000 meals and distribute 25,000 cots, blankets, and tents. Soldiers say it's good to finally be helping U.S. citizens.
I like helping our own, our own American people and everything, because I felt if we was in the situation, the American people would be the first to help us.
It's about time we're doing something for our own people for a change.
Thousands of Army tents are due in shortly for the estimated 200,000 homeless. For now, water and sewer and telephone lines are being patched together. Cleanup of the estimated $20 billion worth of damage is moving with excruciating slowness. Victories in this war zone come in small pieces, like the new roof for the houses Sandy Broom rents to his homestead tenants.
There's nothing can run me away from here. Nothing.
Not even a hurricane?
Not even a hurricane. I'll just build back and start over, that's all.
We're out here to make sure nobody gets hurt. This is why we're here, to make sure everybody gets their fair share of food. I would love to go home and do something in my house, believe me, but I can't do that.
I got the last bit of little baby food. Here. Homestead, Florida. A mountain of boxes filled with food, clothes, toys, anything a devastated population might need.
And when we see all these fantastic people in America who are interested in our need, our time of need, I am just overwhelmed.
Authorities may be overwhelmed as well, but at least these goods, donated by the Red Cross and ordinary people, are getting to the needy.
Take care. Thanks. You're welcome. Have a nice day.
Edmundo Mitre checks the car of a neighbor he hardly knows. She's worried the vehicle will break down.
So don't worry about it. It's okay now.
He has his own problems, but he takes time to help.
I don't got no income. I don't got nothing right now. So, like, to hell with everything, help each other, because that's the only way to be.
At the Bullard home a few blocks away, more helping hands, teenage boys volunteering to repair a neighbor's roof. A couple hospitals were shut down by the hurricane, so field hospitals have been set up. This one at a senior center. The staff, entirely volunteer, people who just want to help out. Many from North Carolina, Dr. Charles Augustus from Homestead itself.
I will never, ever forget Andrew, and I'll never forget all these people coming together and giving up a little part of themselves to make sure the community still had a medical facility.
Dr. Augustus's own office was devastated by Andrew, but he's here. The others, fatigued and overworked, are here, free of charge, because thousands of Andrew's victims need them.
This was my living room. The sofa was right there.
Seth St. Martin hasn't started school yet.
This is the first time I ever been in this area and never saw a storm.
But Hurricane Andrew turned him worldly wise.
He's just pretty good kid, and he's 5 going on 35.
Andrew destroyed the St. Martin's 12 by 62-foot trailer, the only home Seth ever knew.
No, this was the kitchen.
Seth and his parents got out just before Andrew roared through.
He knew we were coming home to nothing when we left. We had explained everything to him, and he's a smart boy.
This side, this was my bedroom.
He remembers good times, having friends visit in his room and play with toys that are probably ruined.
Well, I don't know if they still run, but they're in my trailer. I don't know if they still work and run, but I believe they do. All we got left now is our stuff that we used to have. So as you can see, everything is almost broken.
So you never had seen a storm like this before, had you?
Not in my life.
Will you always remember this? Why?
Because it hit bad.
In the midst of Andrew's ruin, hope is all that remains for some. But it's hope that allows a 5-year-old to conclude that his new home will be better than the one he lost.
For more news from around the world, stay with CNN.
In Florida yesterday, thousands of people received their first hot food since Hurricane Andrew struck on Monday. The federal government is trying to organize and deliver a massive relief effort to the some 180,000 people in South Florida who have been left homeless. Thousands of troops have been flown into Homestead Air Force Base to distribute the necessities of life: food, water, clothing, and housing supplies. Joining us now is Lieutenant Colonel Steve Ritter of the U.S. Army Forces Command. And good morning, Colonel Ritter.
Good morning, Scott.
Sir, could you give us your human as well as your professional estimate about what you've seen there, the level of damage?
Okay, Scott, I drove down Highway 1 yesterday afternoon, and words really just can't express the damage and the devastation that these people down here have suffered and endured. I can say that we're really glad to come down here and be a part of this and assist, and it's amazing to see people that have gone through as much as the people of South Florida have had to endure, that they reach their hand out and are still willing and trying to help their fellow neighbors.
Colonel Ritter, in terms of the terrain, the particular problems you have to deal with, I'm imagining, for example, that a good number of the roads you need to negotiate are blocked by storm damage. What are some of the problems you find you have to contend with?
Okay, the roads have been relatively cleared. We had a little problem getting down yesterday and today down Highway 1. We've had some very good support from state and federal agencies in clearing the way to bring the troops in. Of course, the Florida National Guard have been here as well, working and assisting.
Let me ask you about the possibility of bureaucratic clutter. There's a report, for example, that you guys have something like 2,000 rolls of plastic sheeting that could be used to put over windows and holes in roofs, that sort of thing, but that you can't use it because you've got to negotiate with private contractors to do the job.
Scott, I'm not familiar with that report, but down here on the ground, I would say that it's really hard to see any results of bureaucratic red tape, because I see people from all different agencies, all walks of life, coming together as fellow Americans and as a team and doing what they need to do, and that's taking care of the people here.
Colonel, when were you told to move out?
We got the alert to move out late Thursday afternoon. We alerted the troops at Fort Bragg. Prior to that, however, at Forces Command and as well in the Defense Department, preparations have been made, and we've been sending forms of support, equipment, supplies. But we got the alert to move soldiers in late Thursday afternoon, and we were serving hot meals early Friday morning.
Colonel, I'm wondering, for example, it was sometime on Monday, I believe late Monday morning, that President Bush said he was ready to send federal troops if the governor of Florida requested them. And I'm wondering, Monday afternoon, Tuesday, and Wednesday, did you have any level of activity? Were you making any preparations?
We sure were. As a matter of fact, the preparation for the Defense Department in support of this relief effort actually began before Hurricane Andrew struck the coast. We had been preparing once the weather reports indicated that there was going to be a possible hurricane, and the preparation began, and we've been working 24 hours around the clock in preparing for relief efforts if necessary.
So your impression is, Colonel, that you were just waiting for the call from the state of Florida, essentially, to bring in federal troops?
Well, I'm not saying that we were just waiting for the call. We were certainly ready. There's a certain amount of planning and preparation that goes into any operation. And again, I think the important thing is we're here, we're working, we're getting great cooperation of everyone down here. And the bottom line is the people are being taken care of, and I think they're very happy that we're here.
Okay. Colonel, a lot of Floridians we've been interviewing over the past few days have said something to the effect of, look, we could airlift so much relief to Kurds who were starving in the mountains. We could help victims of the Armenian earthquake, it seemed, within just a couple of days. Why the delay in moving this equipment that's finally coming into South Florida for 4 days? Can you help us understand that?
Okay, again, the equipment, supplies, and stuff, and you may be having a hard time. I see 141 flying over my shoulder, bringing in supplies and troops as we're on the air here. But actually, the delay, there have been supplies, equipment, personnel. The Florida Guards, National Guard has been here, so the support has been provided all along. It takes a while to build up the support, and we're going to continue bringing the resources in here that we need to get the job done.
Colonel Ritter, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for making the time. Up next, we'll talk to meteorologist Brian Norcross, who talked much of South Florida through the siege of Hurricane Andrew. But first, this is Today on NBC.
When Hurricane Andrew hit South Florida, a lot of people needed help. One man in Miami is being hailed as a hero for the job he did by broadcasting vital information along with key advice on both TV and radio simultaneously. WTVJ meteorologist Brian Norcross may have saved countless lives.
Well, you need to do everything you can to hold that door in, Madeline, and you all get all your might behind that. Because you
Brian Norcross was on the air for 23 hours on both radio and television, telling people how to survive.
We're going to stick this out, and we're going to stick together, and we're going to make it through it, okay? Okay. Okay, well, you go ahead and get in that bathroom.
We were in such a panic at the one point in the closet that if it wasn't for Brian's verbal command to get into the safe room like a tub, who knows what could have happened to us.
There was also praise for Brian from many Florida newspapers and thousands of residents who credit him with talking South Florida through the crisis. And one homeowner used his rooftop to send a message of thanks, even if he didn't quite get Brian's name right. Now from WTVJ in Miami, good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Jackie.
Nice to have you here. You've been working round the clock before, during, and after the hurricane. What's it been like for you this past week?
Well, it hasn't been a week. It's amazing. This all started here just about a week ago now. Saturday morning, we sat down and knew that trouble was coming, and we really did not know how bad it was going to be, though. And then in earnest, we started Sunday morning. The storm hit overnight Sunday night, Monday morning, and it really has been absolutely nonstop for not just for me and my colleagues here at WTVJ, of course, but the folks down in South Dade. Some of them went 72 hours before they got a bit of sleep.
You know, I was in Miami just last week, and I felt that this was just more than a community thing. It was a personal thing for you, and people really praised you for that. Was it personal?
Well, it was only personal in the fact that it became apparent that this was going to be a crisis of unprecedented proportions, and personally, you know, I wanted to be sure that I did the best I could do, and as a station we wanted to do the best we could do. But it really was a culmination of a 3-year effort here since I've been working here at WTVJ to be sure that we were as prepared as possible. We bought the necessary equipment. We put in the necessary combinations with the radio station Y100 down here to be sure that we could be on radio for the folks that lost power. We did the best hurricane preparedness booklets that had ever been done, hurricane specials every year. So it was the end of a long 3-year plan, and unfortunately it turned out to be a disaster of these proportions. But we were ready for a hurricane, as ready as we could be, and that's what counted.
But a lot of families credit you with saving their lives, like the one we saw on video, the Fagan family. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the whole story changed as we went through the day that Sunday. It started out to be a Category 2 hurricane. The winds were 110 miles an hour or so, and it was clear that for someone, not necessarily right here in Miami, maybe up the coast, Palm Beach or something, but for someone it was going to be a bad day. But we didn't know at that point there was going to be a catastrophic day, and then slowly the storm built and built and built, and we got into life-saving mode. How we were going to tell people, what we were going to say so that they could save their lives, and we were desperately racking our brains to figure out what is the bottom line. Forget the house, forget everything you know, you just got to save your life. And thankfully, so many folks listened and did it, and we had, you know, we lost lives, but not as many as we could have.
You did save a lot of lives, Brian. Brian, looking back now, you talked about the preparation for the past 3 years for this hurricane. Do you think people were just not expecting the big one to hit?
No, they weren't. There's no question they weren't. They weren't on a lot of levels. The people that were away from the water thought they were safe inland. As a city, we weren't ready. We allowed houses to be built here over the past 20 years or so that just could not withstand probably even a weaker hurricane than this. And we're going to be a better city for this. We're going to know how to build houses, and the city has a whole different spirit that Miami is not the homogeneous city, as you know, Jackie.
Right.
And it is not the city it was before Hurricane Andrew. People are talking, people are getting along, people are knowing each other like they never did before.
There's a unity in the community that I haven't seen before in Miami.
Never.
And it's really nice to see. Brian, one last question. I talked to many residents, many people in the streets in Miami. They consider you a hero. How do you feel?
Well, I'm proud of our effort here at the television station. I'm just happy as I can be that so many people made it through an incredible situation. If you haven't seen it in person, there's nothing to ever compare with this. And I'm proud of what we did here.
And we're very proud of you also. Thank you very much for being with us here this morning. We're very proud of you, Brian. And we'll be right back after these messages on the Today Show.
News Hurricane Survival Guide. This is WESH. The news starts now.
A city of tents will rise from the rubble of Homestead sooner or later. Good evening, I'm Wendy Chioji. Scott is on assignment in South Florida. A week ago tonight, South Florida was coming under attack by Hurricane Andrew. Tonight, adequate shelter is still just an active rumor. The Army has been promising a tent city, but so far, nothing. Let's get the latest on the delay from Scott Hansen live in Homestead. Scott?
Well, Wendy, this field behind me used to be Homestead's baseball field. Tonight it is a camp for Marines and soon may become a tent city capable of housing 1,500 storm victims. Shelter is badly needed down here, but so far that's the one thing the military has not been able to deliver. The sun goes down and still no tents.
You don't sleep in any fire ants tonight.
There are Marines out of Camp Lejeune pitching smaller tents for themselves, but those left homeless by the storm still need shelter and thought it might be on the way when they heard a four-star general say,
"We'll probably start putting up some tents this afternoon."
But instead of putting up tents, they were picking up trash. The tents didn't come, but the afternoon thunderstorms did. The debris all around is a reminder of how badly these people want to see those tents put up.
They will be as soon as we get the equipment in and as soon as we get all the Marines here to set it up.
Generators, Humvees, front-end loaders, and heavy-lifting Chinook helicopters have gotten here, but nothing resembling shelter for the homeless.
We were hampered earlier today by a thunderstorm, and some of the flights that were supposed to bring equipment and transportation in had to be diverted north.
Perhaps another 18 hours or so, we're told, but the people of South Florida are leery of promises like that. And the latest update we have is that those tents could be rolling in here most any time, and when they do arrive, the Marines are ready to work in shifts, putting them up all through the night, and sometime tomorrow we may see a field of tents here in this field behind me. Those storms that I mentioned have been a serious problem. Dave McDaniel now shows us what happens when you add rain to a rather disorganized relief effort.
A family somehow finds a reason to smile as they dig through sopping wet clothes.
Take the bag. Don't open it here. Take it home with you and open it, okay? All right.
There's no shortage of clothes here, but most get drenched regularly by the afternoon thunderstorms.
Want some barbecue chicken?
There's also food to be had, but the rain is affecting that too. This is the second rain shower this afternoon, and tragically, it is ruining some of the food here in the parking lot. Food the Salvation Army has set aside for the people who really need it. Most of it's in cans, and that'll be okay, but a lot of it is also in boxes or envelopes like these grits. That would be a super breakfast for people who are hungry here in South Florida, but because it's not covered by any kind of a tarp, the food will go to waste. So now if you're in the building trades business or if you own a hardware store, they could use some tarps or plastic here. What they don't need, and we keep repeating it, is clothes.
Women's needs, diapers, baby food, formula, milk. Do not send clothes. They don't need it.
Orange County Sheriff's deputies arrived Sunday morning, but they'll go back Sunday night. You see, after waiting all day to be sent somewhere to do something, they've decided they can wait for those orders at home. They'll come back when they're truly needed.
That time, if they need us, we'll come back down here and help them out.
In the meantime, 3 of South Florida's new homeless sit under the only shelter they can find, using everything they own for a seat. They cope.
It's not really that bad. It could be a lot worse. We can, cannot have nobody to help us for drinks or nothing like this.
They do hope they can dry out at least a little before it rains again. In Homestead, Dave McDaniel, 2 News.
And finally from down here, we thought you might be interested to know that Hollywood is already in South Florida scoping out Hurricane Andrew as a possible movie. In fact, one producer that we spoke with today was interested in the story that we told you about last night. Remember, we told you about the 3 little old ladies who were in a mobile home that was partially collapsed by another mobile home sitting on top of it. The producer was quite interested in that, so it is possible, just possible, that Hollywood will help those women to recover from Andrew. Wendy?
That would be great. Now, Scott, we're seeing a whole lot of stuff flow into South Florida right now. Are the folks there even thinking ahead, like 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, a month from now? Will there be enough food and supplies?
If those supplies go to some of the collection centers that are further up north of Miami, some of them will be able to sit there, the canned goods will be able to sit there and have some shelf life so that when this big flood that is hitting here now is over and that subsides a little bit, they'll still have something stockpiled to come down here with.
Meanwhile, they're still hoping for those tents.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks a lot. Scott Hansen, live in Homestead. The hurricane relief effort took a tragic turn today when a volunteer was struck by lightning while trying to help. 1 minute, Herbert Engelman was helping unload supplies from a military chopper and talking about lightning.
How about these bumpers?
The next minute, Engelman was on the ground unconscious. The troops performed CPR until rescue workers arrived and took Engelman to a hospital. The West Palm Beach resident is in critical condition tonight. Governor Lawton Childs has launched a nationwide fundraising campaign to help the victims of the hurricane. He said the state's business community's goal is $1 billion, and he pleaded for people to be generous with their donations.
With the storm damage now expecting to reach $20 billion or more, we've got a long ways to go. I just hope every one of you listening tonight will help us. Yes, the trees and the houses may be down, but the people are still standing.
The governor says Dade County will never be the same, but he expects with everyone's help, it'll be better than before. Volusia County firefighters returned home from Homestead tonight and described what they saw there simply as devastation. For the last week, they've been looking for survivors in the hurricane-ravaged area around Homestead. Elaine Hines was there for the firefighters' homecoming.
Red flashing lights, normally a signal of trouble, were the beacon for those waiting to greet these firefighters. A friendly hug, a welcome word for these men who picked through what's left of a 16-square-mile area around Homestead searching for survivors. They're volunteers trained for search and rescue, but they say no one is prepared for what's down south.
It was a shock because the devastation was worse than we could have expected.
It was very eye-opening, a shock at first, because I've been through hurricanes, and it just, this one seemed to be beyond anything I've been through.
One of the big problems we're going to see now is what's going to happen from here on in. Everybody's addressing the past of what happened. That can't be changed. My honest opinion is the battle has just begun.
The firefighters here say something good did come out of all of this, that they learned some very important lessons they hope they never have to make use of.
It's going to strengthen our department for a situation like this.
These firefighters say their long days and sleepless nights were well worth any personal inconvenience. They expect others would be there for them if there ever was a need. Elaine Hines, 2 News.
Another reminder for those of you heading south with supplies, a relief distribution center has been set up. The South Florida Fairgrounds in West Palm Beach will serve as a national receiving point for donated goods and services. The center is looking for food, water, and baby products. To get there, take I-95 south to the Southern Boulevard exit in Palm Beach. Follow that west for about 10 miles to the fairgrounds. You can also take the Turnpike exit at Okeechobee Boulevard and head south to the fairgrounds. To find out where to mail a check or to donate through your credit card, call the center at 800-FL-HELP1. Volunteers are manning those phones 24 hours a day.
The stench left by Andrew's rage now hovers over South Florida in the steamy August heat. Authorities fear rotting garbage and mosquitoes will cause major health problems. As relief efforts help residents inch back toward normalcy, the first ship in a Navy convoy bringing more supplies is due to dock in Miami right about now. Through the eyes of some of Andrew's younger victims, things aren't all bad. Florida Governor Lawton Chiles joins us in a few minutes to talk about how people are digging out from under the debris and about relief efforts. Tracking Hurricane Andrew and bracing the public for its severe blow is a tough job for meteorologists, and we'll talk with one who helped track the storm for CNN, and he'll be taking your phone calls. Hello, welcome to CNN Morning News. I'm Donna Kelly. Bob Kane has this week off. 1 week after Hurricane Andrew blasted through South Florida, residents are just now beginning to sort out the damage and start the repairs. The first of 5 Navy ships carrying tons of food, water, and construction supplies is scheduled to arrive in Miami within the hour. In all, 4 relief ships are expected today, the 5th one for tomorrow. It's estimated 150,000 people are homeless or living without adequate shelter.
Done. I hate to take away all planes and glory. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, about 22 teams. Yep, minus 108 is what? About 80 more for this camp. And then wherever they want another one, we'll go build. One more steak.
Enjoy a mistake.
I don't like it, and I don't think it's going to work out well, because I spent a night in the shelter and I know how things go. And you got you're gonna have what, 15 people in one tent? It's not guaranteed that you're gonna know the next person. And I would be afraid because the bathrooms are like miles away. And if I had to use the bathroom in like a hurry, I wouldn't make it. And then it's gonna be people out here probably robbing people and stealing things, and it's gonna cause problems. Then they're gonna come in with their big guns and everybody's gonna suffer for a little thing that some people started, because it's like that now at night. It's like a war zone here. If you go anywhere and it starts getting dark, you meet like 6 or 7 big guns. And they like show your hands and stuff like that, and it's terrifying me.
Those pictures to give you an idea of what it's like in Homestead, Florida this morning. Now, Army soldiers are already handing out the supplies that have arrived, and residents are using chainsaws, hammers, and heavy equipment to get rid of the debris. Now, one of the biggest problems for residents and relief officials is removing the tons of garbage and debris. Officials have sprayed the area with pesticides to kill mosquitoes that could spread disease. Up the coast in West Palm Beach, more relief supplies were loaded onto military helicopters and trucks for the trip to Homestead. Some residents of that town are also helping people who cannot take care of their pets by providing shelter for the animals until their owners' homes are rebuilt. Damage from the storm is estimated to be in the billions of dollars. And aerial photos taken of the region show just how massive the devastation is. Today, is also the first day that many people are going back to work, and many commuters are driving on streets with no traffic signs or signals, or they're having to take long detours because many roads remain closed. We want to get the latest for you right now from Florida, and CNN's John Holloman can give us that update. John, hello.
Donna, good morning to you. It is hot. It is sweaty. You can certainly tell that from my face right now. I'm with the state's chief medical officer, Dr. Charles Mahan, the state medical official for Florida. Dr. Mahan, as we look around here at this devastation, you see behind us a house with no roof, and you see standing water on the ground here. What are your big concerns today?
Well, I think our big concerns as far as preventing future health care problems are really the basics: food, clothing, and shelter. We've been able to get the the health care part of it together pretty well for people. The big flaw there is being able to get out into the neighborhoods, and we're doing that with the public health nurses right now.
Well, of course, there are a lot of people in this shelter that we've been working from for the past several days, but I guess there are a lot of people who can't even get here, right?
That's right. Communication's non-existent in this area, and will be for a long time, it sounds like. And transportation, if somebody's car wasn't blown away, then the gas isn't being pumped because there's no electricity. So we're going to have to, and we've been working on that the last 3 days, is getting people out to where the people are and bringing them in if they have serious problems.
What are the biggest medical problems you're worried about right now, this minute?
Right now, this minute, I'd say the prevention of an infectious disease outbreak over the next week. We're a week past the initial storm. We've been very lucky so far as health and medical injuries and so on. We've trying to get the water supply back as quickly as possible and get showers here for people so they can keep clean. We're really worried about diseases caused by filth, that people aren't going to be able to wash their hands or think about doing that because they're sort of camping out everywhere. And they just really have to do that, and we have to get the message out. We're distributing 50,000 leaflets today to areas that don't have any communication, and another 50,000 tomorrow, both in English and Spanish, trying to stress the importance of that for people and their children. Just the real basic stuff that everybody is supposed to do at home is now become sort of the difference between us getting through this with minimal problems and some big problems.
Yeah, let's talk about the state of the people who live here as far as health care goes. As you were pointing out to me earlier, a lot of the people who live here are migrant workers. A lot of the people who are in this part of South Florida are the poorest of the poor. How are they doing, and how are they going to be able to do now that, even though they didn't have much to begin with, they don't even have a house to live in now?
Well, of course, they at least had shelter going for them before, and probably food and clothing, and now they don't even have that. And because of all of Florida's financial problems the last few years, this area, which was just barely served by health care before, has even fallen into worse disrepair. So, some of the folks that I've talked to that have been treated at the medical facilities are telling me that they're getting more health care now than they got the last 5 years because there are now lots of people in their neighborhood looking to serve them.
As you know, we've seen pictures today of tent cities beginning to be erected all around us here. There'll be beds probably by the end of this week for 5,000 or 6,000 people. How long are those 5,000 or 6,000 people going to have to live in a tent?
Well, if they're in the Florida City area and parts of Homestead, when you fly over those and see that just thousands of homes don't exist anymore and have been flattened. I'm no expert on rebuilding places, but it's got to be at least 6 months, and I would bet a year that people are going to have to live in some kind of temporary shelter.
As the chief medical officer for the state of Florida, how are you going to keep it safe and sanitary in a tent city for 6 months?
Well, I think we can do a better job in a tent city than the way people are living now, because we will know where they are. We can set up health care and public health people and environmental health sanitarians, in those areas, assign them there every day, and really police the area around there, making sure that there aren't things like you see around here, half-eaten hamburgers and things like that lying around that attract rats. And I think we can help people a lot more if we just sort of, and the other thing we're trying to do, because public health people are in short supply in this part of the state, is we're trying to get long-term commitments from our private colleagues saying, Well, right now we have as much help as we need. Our problem now is logistics and organization, but we'd sure like you to think about coming down and spending a few weeks in October or December or February, because these people are going to need it then.
So you think December, January, and February it's still going to be pretty rotten for the people who are living in these tents?
I think it will be. Well, like I say, it'll be better to be in an organized tent than living out in the field somewhere, which a lot of people have been doing for a week.
Yeah, you said that you were worried about half-eaten hamburgers here on the ground and rats and things like that. Is that we talked to a man yesterday whose house has no roof, and he's showering in the yard with a hose, just pouring it over his head. Is he doing the right thing to do that, do you think? I mean, to use a garden hose to try to stay clean?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Most of our tests on the water supply in this area have been normal. There have been just a few that have been questionable, and even if they're questionable, it's better for people that have been out exposed all the time and getting really dirty to use a hose and take a shower and get soap, even use laundry detergent if they have to wash off with. That makes a big difference in preventing disease.
How long is it going to take you to get the water supply back to normal for the people who still do have houses with a sink or something in the house, do you think?
For South Miami, for the bottom part of the urban area, they think, they hope that in the next week or two they'll get it back. For this area down here, I think it may be a month or so, or maybe longer. I don't have the expertise to predict that.
Sure. The water that people are getting, I guess, is it's all bottled, and it's you have no concerns about that, right? The water that's coming in here in containers.
No, as long as they are sealed containers, and I was checking them over today at one of the church tents, then it's perfectly safe. Even if it sits out in the sun, as long as the seal hasn't been broken, why, it's good water.
All right. Dr. Charles Mahan, thank you very much for joining us today and giving us a very extensive report. Governor Lawton Childs is walking down the street toward us right now. We're going to take a break. We'll come back and talk to him in just a moment. Stay with us. Okay. Thank you. Here we go. Well, we're back with Florida Governor Lawton Childs. Governor, it's been a busy week for you, certainly. The question that people are still asking, that I am hearing, is why hasn't somebody been able to do more for us? What do you tell those people?
Well, I think you've seen this devastation, given the width and the terrible devastation of this. There's no way you could do it all at once, as each one of us would like it to happen. We had some delays in the first days, there's no doubt about that, but now I think the personnel are coming, the equipment's coming, the volunteers are just responding wonderfully from all over the country, sending things, and we're getting some help now.
Let's take a walk into this house, which is has been devastated pretty significantly. There's certainly no roof left on this house. And tell me what the state of Florida or the federal government or somebody is going to be able to do for the people who live in this mess, or who used to live in this mess.
Well, I think we're now classifying houses. I think we're up to about 85,000 that virtually are unrepairable. I would say that one is probably going to fit into this one is probably going to fit into that class, but somebody else more expert than I looks. And that means they've got to be raised, cleared, and we're beginning to sort of start thinking about how we build this place back. I'm determined that it's got to be better than it was before.
Yeah, a lot of people who live here are poor, particularly in the Homestead and Florida City, South Florida area. And these people have never had much of anything, and now they don't even have a place to live. Is the end result of this going to be something a lot better for those people, do you think?
I think it has to be. And it's amazing, how some of our farm workers, we had some projects that were models of sweat equity, allowing them to kind of build their own houses. Those things worked. We never could get any decent funding for them. Now, I think if we can get that going, an awful lot of these people will build themselves.
Yeah. How long is it going to be before the people who live in this house, or used to, who are probably now going to live in a tent tonight, are going to be able to live in a house again?
Well, I can't answer that question. First, we got to feed and shelter and clothe and take care of the medical needs of those people. I think very quickly we're going to be there. Then we go into phase 2, which is sort of getting all the debris cleared up and the power working and all. And then the third phase is rebuilding And I don't know when we'll start the third phase. I'd say we're getting close to phase 2 now.
Yeah, something you just talked to me about was, this demonstration project where people could build their own houses. Great idea, no money. Are your people talking to the federal government people and other people about getting you, a tremendous infusion of money to do things like that?
Well, we're talking that, and the president has said he's going to put in an emergency supplemental bill. I think it's going to be a while before we're going to know the total extent of what we're going to need, but we sure need help.
Yeah, well, that's pretty obvious. How are the people of Florida reacting to this? I know a few days ago I heard a lot of people complaining. They were mad at you. They were certainly mad at George Bush. A lot of them were mad at us as well for not getting here and explaining the depth of the devastation as clearly as maybe we were able to. But is that changing?
I think so. Of course, nobody understood the depth of the devastation, as you said. I think now, we're finding all of the pockets that even 2 days ago we weren't finding that didn't have any help. And we're trying to just get more consistent with what we're doing. And so I think the level of frustration has gone down. We got a different kind of frustration now. People want to go faster, with everything we're doing.
Yeah, the tent cities are going up today, I guess. We've seen some pictures this morning. Is that progressing as fast as you'd like right now?
Oh, I think it's progressing as fast as they can get the things here. We know that we got troops working all night long. That's moving along.
What do you need that you don't have?
Well, we need, continuing help. What I'm afraid of is that y'all will move on to the next disaster or the next thing in a few days, and we're left still with 85 or 90,000 homes that we've got to rebuild. So we need some continuing support from the country to help us with this.
Well, there are a lot of numbers that CNN flashes up on the screen, for people to send money and send assistance.
I can give you one right now.
All right, fire away.
1-800-FL-HELP, HELP -1, and send us a check to the Florida Relief Fund, or call and we'll tell you where to send material.
Quick last question, if we can. How would you assess the state of the situation right here, right now?
Oh, I think the state is improving, and I think, as I say, we've stopped the hemorrhaging. We're able now to feed and clothe people, shelter people. Sheltering is now going on. We're ready to start trying to really do something about the infrastructure, the power, cleaning up the debris. That's a big problem now because we're about to have, a lot of problems with health if we don't get a lot of this cleaned up.
All right, Governor Lawton Chiles, thanks a lot for taking a little time out. Come back to see us. We'd like to get your update because you're obviously a man who needs to know about this situation as much as we do.
Come back to see us. We need you here a lot.
Florida Governor Lawton Chiles, a man with lots of needs this morning. John Holloman, CNN Live in Homestead, Florida.
Tracking nature's rage for a television audience may be one of the hardest tasks meteorologists ever face in their careers. Is the knowledge of how fierce a storm such as Andrew is enough to scare people into preparing for the worst? Brian Norcross, a meteorologist at CNN affiliate station WTVJ in Miami, is one of the people who tracked Andrew's path. And Brian Norcross joins us now from Miami to discuss some of the feelings and emotions that he experienced at a time when he was just doing his job. Brian, welcome to you. You know, a lot of us are certainly familiar at CNN with a breaking news story with something like Hurricane Andrew and how the adrenaline gets going. Maybe you can describe for folks how that goes when you're trying to just do your job, as you say.
Well, it was an evolving story, as I know you folks have covered a lot, because we started out that Sunday morning, and actually I sat down at our anchor desk here at 9 a.m. Sunday morning, knowing that we had a serious threat to South Florida, but at that point we didn't know how serious the threat was. The storm was a Category 2 storm, meaning about 110-mile-an-hour winds. And then through the day, as we went through the evacuation procedures, our goal of the broadcasting changed. First, we were trying to motivate people to evacuate. And as the storm grew and grew and became more and more intense, that became ever so much more urgent. So it became almost a psychological battle with the people in the evacuation zones to try and get them out of their condos and out of their houses and motivate them to go maybe to a part of town that they weren't familiar with. So that was the first part of it. And then as we went on through the storm and it became more and more clear that this was going to be a catastrophic event. In fact, I said on the air several times that this was going to be one of the turning points in the history of the city, and it would be a day unprecedented in the history of the country. I mean, that was clear before the storm ever hit, that a major hurricane had never hit a metropolitan area before, a major metropolitan area, a city of the size of Miami and Fort Lauderdale. So it became then, as the storm was raging outside, a matter of trying to let people know that they had to hang on. They had to hold those doors shut. They just had to hang on in their safe closet or bathroom or whatever. So
tell us a little bit about, tell us a little bit about some of the calls and things that you got while the storm was going on.
Thankfully, the phone system stayed up. Southern Bell did a tremendous job here in keeping the phone system working for most of even the devastated area, and we took calls from people that were in the one call that was the centerpiece of it all was a call from a girl named Madeline, and she was in her bathroom with her pregnant sister, her father and her brother and one other person, and her father and her brother were trying to keep the bathroom door from coming in. And she's saying, what do we do, what do we do? And what I said was, Madeline, you tell them they must hold that door. Well, how much longer, how much longer? About 15 minutes, and we could see clearly. We were the only ones with radar, and we could see clearly what was hitting them, and I was trying to estimate how much longer it would be, and it turned out that call, because so many other people were in the same situation, that call told people that they were not alone in this, and they thought, I can hang on for 15 minutes. I can do it. If Madeline can do it, I can do it, and that turned out to be one of the real turning points in the middle of the storm.
You know, it seems to me I saw on The Wire last week, toward the end of last week, a story about you, and your importance certainly went up when the National Hurricane Center in Coral Gables, Florida was hit. And were you advising then Bob Sheets and some of the other folks at the Hurricane Center?
Well, I don't want to overblow that. What happened was we were using the Miami radar, which comes out of the National Hurricane Center, and we saw it just stop all of a sudden. And I said on the air, something bad just happened to the Miami radar. And we were in constant communication about every 15 minutes or so with Bob Sheets. We'd have him on live. And we had access, and we were the only ones here that had access to the West Palm Beach radar. So we quickly went and converted over the West Palm Beach radar, and we could see the eye and where it was located, but no one else could because the Miami radar had gone out. So shortly thereafter, we were in contact with Bob Sheets, and you could see this look on his face like I've never seen before, because when they lost that radar dome on top of the Hurricane Center, the entire 6-story building shook, and they weren't sure whether they were going to hold that building together. So we were able to tell them, based on the West Palm Beach radar, where they were with relation to the eye wall and where exactly the storm was at that point. They then went to another radar sometime later where they could then track it again themselves, but there was just a little gap in time there, and we happened to be in communication with them at that moment to sort of give them a little update.
Yeah, Brian, as a meteorologist, does Andrew tell you anything about this upcoming hurricane season, whether it might be worse or what we can expect?
No, it was a freak of timing. The conditions in the Atlantic had been incredibly unfavorable all year long. The entire season, it was unfavorable for hurricanes. As a matter of fact, it had been one of the quietest years in the history of tracking hurricanes, which goes back something over 100 years. But we could see early in the week that if the storm hung together, it almost dissipated over by Puerto Rico. If it hung together, there was the potential for a threat to the southeastern United States. Of course, at that point, we didn't know whether it was South Florida or whether it was Carolinas, but we could see the way that the systems were developing that there was a potential threat.
All right, Brian, we need to take a quick break here, and we'll come back with phone calls for Brian Norcross. You can call with your question. Our number here is 404-221-1855. Welcome back. We're talking with Brian Norcross. He is a meteorologist at WTVJ in Miami and covered Hurricane Andrew heavily. California, you're on the air with us this morning. Hello.
Hello. Mr. Norcross, I have a quick question for you. About 10 years ago, I saw a meteorologist speak at a school, and at that time he was talking about the possibility several years down the road of using technology in space to aim the sunlight from space using large mirrors and pinpointing storms such as hurricanes to possibly dissipate them. Are you familiar with this, and is it feasible?
No, I'm not familiar with that. I'm certainly familiar with the effort to seed hurricanes, but the bottom line is that the concern is that we don't know enough about what it would do, that suppose it increased the intensity of the storm. The evidence is not strong enough to know what would happen, and there's such a significant threat here that if it went a little wrong, it could make it worse, and then you'd have the exposure of legal issues and whatnot. So I think we're a long way off from doing something like that because there's no time to experiment. There's no place to actually hold an experiment.
Florida, your question, please.
Yes, this is, how you doing, Brian?
Okay.
This is Danny Jenkins. I'm calling from West Palm Beach, and I've always been told that the islands in the Bahamas could affect a hurricane's wobbling and direction, and I know that if a hurricane moves 1 degree, it's a difference of 60 miles. Is that true?
Well, the Bahamas are so small and essentially have no high ground that the effect on the strength of the hurricane is minimal. As a matter of fact, hurricanes can grow when they come over the Bahamas because the Gulf Stream is there and the water is even warmer, and it's that warm water that fuels the storm. So the Bahamas don't do it, but the Caribbean islands, Cuba, Hispaniola, with the mountains, they indeed do disrupt the circulation of the storm.
Illinois, good morning.
Yes, I guess this is a mix of a meteorological and political question. I'm a Republican, and I guess most of the media are Democrats because they seem to want to be piling on George Bush for having an act of God hit the Miami coast. And I guess the governor of Florida, being a Democrat, filed 2 days later for federal aid, and now all the media wants to bash our president. I wondered if you've ever seen a natural disaster being put into the political arena as much as this year's one.
Well, certainly Hurricane Hugo was. Hit Charleston in 1989. It was the same sort of thing. The federal government was given a lot of blame for responding slowly. But I can tell you this, before the storm ever hit, we were talking about where aid was going to come from for the people, for wherever it hit. And I said, and we said on our air, that remember, the federal government's aid comes much later. The state and local government aid comes immediately. So we made that clear at that time. I think a lot of people think that the government will descend on them. But I will say that the overall aid effort here has come faster than it did in Hugo, in spite of the fact that it's just that the need is so tremendous and so much more than it was in Hugo. It's a very, very complicated problem, both politically, practically, logistically, and every other way.
And we had the assistant director for FEMA on with us last week, and he said that the government certainly had learned some lessons from Hurricane Hugo, and going on that. Rhode Island, hello, you're on the air.
Hi, I'm from Newport, and we are being stationed down into the Florida area, and we were just wondering, we have such a lack of information up here, where did the eye of the storm go through, and how wide of a path did it cut? We're familiar with it went all the way south to the Florida City area, but how far north did it actually wipe out the area?
Well, in terms of being wiped out, if you get out a map and you look for a Miami suburb called Kendall, which is a very large Miami suburb of about 250,000 people, that's about the northern edge of the most intense part, the very southern part of Coral Gables, and the Kendall area, and then down to Homestead and Florida City that you know about so well. So if you look at it, get out a map and look, that's where it hit. But let me say one more thing about that. The southern part of Dade County is fairly sparsely populated by South Florida standards. This metropolitan area, of course, is 4 million people, going up to include the Palm Beaches. And if the storm had gone anywhere else in this metropolitan area, the damage would have been much, much worse, if you can imagine that, and we're talking $30 billion worth of damage at this point.
Oh, that's frightening. Ohio, you're our last call this morning. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Brian. My name is Eileen. I'm calling right now from Ohio, but I live in Kendall, and I moved. I went with my baby to Ohio where my in-laws are. At that time, when I was in Miami, they kept saying that there was a possibility of another storm. Is that still true?
Well, there's always a possibility of another storm. Statistically, from the third week of August through the third week of October, that is the peak of our hurricane season here. And here it is, the end of August, so we're clearly still on the uphill swing of hurricane probabilities. And there are many, many years, if you look historically, that we've had 2 and 3 hurricanes come close in the same year, and maybe even a couple more weaker storms. So this is a hurricane-prone part of the world. In fact, this is the most hurricane-prone historically part of the country. It's just that we haven't had any storms here since 1965 until Andrew, and we're going to have to get back in hurricane mode and learning how to deal with it, learning how to build buildings, and just having it be part of life in this part of the country.
Brian Norcross, meteorologist with WTVJ in Miami. Thanks a bunch for joining us this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Right now in morning.
Hi. Think about it, bro.
You guys working hard?
Been working all night.
Yeah? This ain't straight. You guys getting tired?
Yeah, real tired.
But many will soon spell relief, T-E-N-T. You've heard about the devastation in South Florida. Now let's take you on a city-by-city tour.
Reporter Ed Trotsky, who spent the last week covering Hurricane Andrew, actually road maps the damage for us.
This is a map of South Florida. We have the Dade-Broward line up here, and down here, Homestead in the Florida City area. Now, up in North Dade, they were lucky. Mostly down power lines and uprooted trees. The most significant damage from Hurricane Andrew begins right over here. We're talking about the area just south of downtown Miami. Hurricane Andrew tossed around boats at the Dinner Key Marina, but just to the north, Miami Beach escaped most of Andrew's wrath. About 10 miles inland, you'll find Miami International Airport. Now, Hurricane Andrew took a swipe at the airport as he was heading across South Florida. Hurricane-force winds blew this Braniff International jetliner into a canal. Other damage kept the airport closed until Wednesday. Over here, just south of Miami Beach and on to the south, this is where the powerful eye wall of Hurricane Andrew moved ashore, and that's why up here in Kendall and neighborhoods down south, you'll find entire neighborhoods devastated. 150,000 people from Kendall south to Florida City still don't have adequate shelter tonight. No one's come by to
say anything. Nothing.
Lakes by the Bay is typical. Almost every home is damaged. There is no power and no drinkable water, but about a fourth of the residents haven't left. But people are living here without any food and water and electricity.
What choices do they have? And they have shelter, which is better than a lot of the people in Homestead and Florida City.
Certainly is worse in Florida City and Homestead. You know, it's interesting, some of the people in this area, Mary, they weren't even told to evacuate. We know of people who came from the Keys and evacuated to the Cutler Ridge area, where the storm, of course, was much worse.
Do you find that, especially at the beginning of the week, that people were just in shock?
I was in shock even. I mean, when you fly over this area in a helicopter, you get very depressed. You just want to get out of there, get back to where it's normal.
Do you think a lot of people will do that? Do you think people will look at what they see there and say, forget it, I'm going to move to Orlando, I'm going to move to Jacksonville, I can't take it?
A lot of the people who can afford it are already doing that. Renters who don't have to worry about giving up a rental property down in this area, they're already moving to Broward County and farther north. They're enrolling their kids in schools where schools are open. That's Broward and north.
What about jobs? Do we know how many jobs were wiped out in the neighborhoods that were wiped out? Is there any kind of estimate on that?
We don't know numbers, but we do know in the Florida City Homestead area, that's a nursery area. That's where they have a lot of growers, and those fields were wiped out, and those greenhouses were wiped out, and those people are out of work. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of migrant families who live in that area.
But luckily they can replant, and it's not like building a new company.
That's right, and hopefully they can replant by this winter, because that's where we get most of our winter vegetables.
So we will be talking about Andrew and how it affects us at least into the winter, probably for 2 or 3 years.
Definitely.
Thanks, Ed. David. 1 week since Hurricane Andrew roared across South Florida, reporter Ed Trotsky arrived in Miami just before Andrew struck. Tonight he looks back at one of the most devastating weeks in U.S. history.
Any indications that we're going to have a major fly-up, that we can't get those people out in the next 3 hours?
1 week ago Sunday, coastal residents flee an approaching hurricane.
Well, it looks like it's for real.
Hey, you surfers, everybody out of the pool!
Early Monday morning, Hurricane Andrew rolls in. The wind is blowing. Stones are coming off the roof. They tell us we could get up to 8 inches of rain from this storm. Once the sun comes up, it looks like a bomb went off. By Monday afternoon, the looters are out, prompting a dusk to dawn curfew.
They don't have any more gas.
Tuesday, reality sets in. There are long lines for food and ice. One man compares it to Cuba.
Exactly like Cuba. It's the same it is. Every time you see a line, you just stop there and you get whatever it is. You don't care what they're selling.
Wednesday, shopkeepers are sweeping up along Miami Beach.
We got a family of 15.
A tanker truck arrives for the thirsty, and the compassionate begin responding to South Florida's needs.
Some woman dropped off some clothes, baby clothes, shoes, and...
Thursday, thousands still in South Florida shelters are getting their first hot meal in 4 days.
It ain't the steak, it ain't the peas and rice, but it's good when you consider people back in home still starving.
People are starving. This woman hasn't fed her family in 3 days.
We've been driving around trying to find something. Then luckily we found these people.
Finally, on Friday, thousands of federal troops are ordered in.
Hey, the help is coming. It's here.
But by Saturday, South Florida's relief effort is overwhelmed.
I see total mismanagement, which is, and it's just terrible. It's sad to the point where I quit.
While relief workers try to get organized, doctors and nurses are treating the sick and injured. This makeshift hospital in a middle school library is seeing 300 patients a day. It is 1 week Miami will never forget, nor this 5-year-old boy who drew a man in a hurricane and a demolished home. He looks sad.
Because his house broke.
Did your house blow away?
No. It just got flooded.
He almost sounds cheerful. No, just a little bit of flooding. What about the kids in school?
Well, you know, in South Florida, they are going to try to go back to school on September 14th, but even then, there are many schools that will just not be ready then, 2 weeks from now.
What about people armed to protect their own possessions?
You know, we saw a lot of that. People don't want to leave their homes. They don't want to leave their homes and go in these tents. They want to stay in their houses and protect what's theirs, and some of them are armed.
It's just an altogether scary, frightening, sad situation.
Sure is.
Thanks, Ed. You did a great job down there.
Thank you.
David.
As we mentioned, Hurricane Andrew left its mark on one of Florida's cherished natural treasures, the Everglades. The national park is closed due to the widespread damage, and CNN's Sean Calebs has our report.
Gone is the late summer plush green scenery. The Everglades Park was robbed of its seasonal beauty when Andrew roared in. Pine, cypress, and mahogany trees, overburdened by winds, became yet another hurricane casualty. Before sightseers return, park authorities face a heavy cleanup task.
We're going to look for hazard trees in all the inhabited areas, the picnic areas, campgrounds and stuff. We're not going to have trees that are widowmakers hanging there. But other than that, back in the woods, we're not going to go back there 100 yards and fix anything.
The park entrance is only 11 miles from Homestead, the Miami suburb that felt the full force of the hurricane's fury. Andrew carved a path of destruction through the northern portion of the national park. Officials are just now beginning to assess the damage to the wealth of wildlife and vegetation. But the Everglades are resilient, a river of grass that has survived centuries of natural disasters. Nesting sites for the area's birds will be at a premium. Wildlife experts say the few remaining endangered Florida panthers weathered the storm. Freshwater areas will be salty, but the hurricane's wind and rain may have helped flush out a buildup of mercury and other pollutants here.
Hurricane in the Everglades, in the park, is a natural process. It surely isn't natural at Homestead, but it's natural down here. So, the wildlife has grown up here. At least the native wildlife and vegetation evolved in a hurricane environment.
The park's boardwalk nature trails, lodges, and the visitor center all face massive repairs. Other problems won't be solved with wood, nails, and mortar. Forestry officials have been trying to weed out plants that were inadvertently introduced to the glades, such as Melaleuca, a tree that has been spreading like wild despite efforts to control it.
Seeds are aerial dispersed. Well, of course, if you have 160 miles an hour air coming through, dispersal is going to be real effective. So while we probably had pockets of it before here, I think we're going to have it much more widespread now in all likelihood.
It's not pretty, but it is natural. Man will clear the roads and fix the buildings, but wildlife experts fully expect the trees and animals to eventually return and the Everglades to regain its splendor and beauty. Sean Caleb, CNN, the Florida Everglades.
And that's
Labor Day marks the traditional beginning of the political season. It is also the unofficial end of summer, a day for outdoor barbecues and picnics and parades to honor America's working men and women. Some of the parades this year marked by protests from workers hurting in a tight economy. A Labor Day outing turned to disaster when a plane carrying skydivers crashed and burned in Hinckley, Illinois, west of Chicago. All slammed into South Florida. Another army arrived there today, an army of volunteers, people who had the day off because of Labor Day and wanted to help. ABC's Mark Potter is in the Homestead area.
Thousands of volunteers arriving to spend their holiday in South Dade County were given quick briefings by officials.
Drink lots of water. You feel yourself getting lightheaded, dizzy, just sit down and rest a while.
They then went right to work, many of them handing out food and organizing tons of supplies.
It's about the only way that I thought that I could help out, you know, because I don't have a lot of money and stuff.
I'd feel guilty if I stayed up there and had a barbecue.
For most of the storm victims, Labor Day doesn't mean much this year. There is no time to relax. Today is just one more day to clean up and rebuild. In Homestead, Mildred McIntyre's neighbors took time from their own repairs to put a new roof on her house.
They've been friends of the family for years, you know, and we all like one big family around here. And this is her house. That's my grandmother's house right there. And my house is right in front of my grandmother's house, so we like family.
Their help is greatly needed, because there's no way I could have done anything without them.
For hundreds of people, Labor Day meant waiting hours for emergency food stamps, for which they were suddenly eligible because of the storm. Many here thought they would never have to apply for food stamps.
It's awful. It's a bad feeling. It really is.
In the tent cities, which are finally starting to fill up, some comforts of home are appearing, despite all the discomfort. And on a day when most businesses in America are closed, it was considered a victory that a few could open here. Mark Potter, ABC News, Homestead, Florida.
The insurance industry has raised its estimate of how much it will have to spend as a result of Hurricane Andrew, up nearly $1 billion to $8 billion, which is twice as much as insurance companies paid out 3 years ago when Hurricane Hugo battered South Carolina. Before Andrew, Hugo was America's costliest natural disaster. ABC's Mike Von Fremt went to McClellanville, South Carolina to check on the recovery.
When Hugo hit McClellanville, the fishing village was totally destroyed. The shrimpers here have now replaced their boats, rebuilt their homes, and are back in business, but are heavily in debt to the federal government. It has not been easy, and people like Buster Brown, who owns the small grocery store in town, have some depressing news for the victims of Andrew.
They expect a lot of complicated long lines and double talk from FEMA, and be disappointed as many times as they can go apply. And they better depend on the church volunteers and the people coming in with the independent help, because the government's going to do as little as possible or do it just as slow as possible, and after a while they're going to feel like the hurricane wasn't anything.
Others are angry at insurance companies. In Folly Beach, Kathy Witherspoon's house is still in shambles.
They offered me a total of $16,400 for about $90,000 worth of wind damages.
And many here were victimized by fly-by-night contractors, including the city clerk, who says she should have known better.
Smooth talking Alabama. Nice looking man driving a truck with the radio in it, and you know, I thought he was honest.
Not only did the contractor reshingle her roof without using enough nails, he stole all of her plumbing fixtures. But for every horror story, there are also memories of compassion. Carteret County, North Carolina, sent donations to McClellanville.
Carteret County, remember them. They saved this town.
By helping you out, sending you stuff that you needed?
First couple of weeks, you could depend on him.
And many whose homes were nearly destroyed have rebuilt and say the community is better off today.
Now we have much better houses and nicer looking place, and also built to current hurricane standards.
People who have experienced such a storm and dealt with the destruction say they look back on it as a benchmark.
It just has divided our lives in half in a lot of ways. And material things don't measure up quite so much from then on.
Before Hugo, when I saw natural disasters, I went, damn, that's too bad. You know, I feel for those people. But it was kind of a statement. Now, since Hugo, when I see that, it's a personal thing. You feel it, and you really do feel for those people.
And they offer more than just compassionate words. This town of 400 people victimized by Hugo has sent dozens of volunteers to help the victims of Andrew. Mike Von Fremd, ABC News, McClellanville.
Some hurricane experts say the wind speed of Hurricane Andrew may have been higher than previously reported. Early reports suggest Andrew's winds averaged 110 to 125 miles an hour, but a team of meteorologists says Andrew likely packed winds of nearly 200 miles an hour. The team, led by National Hurricane Center Director Bob Sheets, came to that conclusion after examining the destruction in a Dade County community. Maintaining law and order in hurricane-ravaged Homestead, Florida has become a huge effort, and as CNN's Charles Jaco reports, also a team effort.
In an area where everything else is less than it used to be, the Homestead, Florida police force is now 10 times its normal strength. Officers from more than 40 other agencies patrol the streets, nabbing those suspected of looting, and these men who say they came from Gainesville, Florida to help a friend replace his roof. They were arrested by Polk County, Florida deputies for allegedly picking up scrap metal off the street.
We were rounded up with basically felons, all felons that were doing crimes against other people. And for 42 hours, I didn't get to use a phone. 30 hours, I didn't have any food.
Homestead police say it's part of law and order in a town ripped to pieces.
There's no one authorized down here other than volunteers that check in through here to pick up items out there.
When we first got here, looting was pretty large scale. I mean, it was pretty easy pickings. But the area's been well saturated with law enforcement now, and that's slowed down considerably.
Thanks to the beefed up police presence.
Where's the homeowner, do we know?
I don't know. When Homestead Sergeant Scott Kennedy answers neighbors' calls about a stranger at a house, his backup consists of officers from Orlando, Bartow, and Lakeland, Florida. 65 of Homestead's 80 police officers lost their homes to Hurricane Andrew. Police from Charleston, South Carolina, who went through the same thing with Hurricane Hugo, were the first to arrive, getting here the day after the storm hit. Many out-of-town officers volunteered for Homestead duty, but helping brings out new challenges.
Trying to get acclimated to just a completely new environment, absent of street signs and landmarks. It awfully much looks alike. Just every direction you look, it's all destroyed.
To ease the transition, Homestead officers each have an out-of-town cop as a partner.
33, Charlie.
But there are some problems, like Orlando dispatcher Tom Sorley having to learn new radio codes.
I felt like a trainee all over again.
Military police control traffic in a land without traffic lights. Federal marshals help keep the peace in the tent cities. And other officers will be rotating here at least through November, helping keep order in the midst of chaos. Charles Jaco, CNN, Homestead, Florida.